Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And as Dr. Masalai said, this is the third lecture of our series of discussion on the story of Dhul al-Qarnayn in the Quran. Today we will focus on the historical identity of the Dhul al-Qarnayn, mostly in the context of Cyrus, the Persian king. And then at the end, we start to go to the introduction to the next, inshallah, next top 2 weeks, which will be the similar narratives. So I will start with these verses they're not from Dhul al-Qarnayn's story, but just because we may not do it as much as the verses, I would use two other verses from this Surah 18, which, as I said, are the verses which are in the middle of the Surah, and the stories of Dhul al-Qarnayn or Khizr or other ones, or Ashab al-Kahf go around it. So I read the English one. So Bismillah ar-Rahman. I mean, I read just the translation, but maybe who's a greater wrongdoer than he who is reminded of the signs of his Lord, whereat he disregards them and forgets what his hands have sent ahead? Indeed, we have cast veils on their hearts, lest they should understand it, and a deafness into their ears. And if you invite them to guidance, they will never let themselves be guided. Your Lord is the all-forgiving dispenser of mercy. Were he to take them to the task because of what they have committed, he would have surely hastened their punishment, but they have a tryst when they will not find a refuge besides him. Those are the towns that we destroyed when they were wrongdoers, and we appointed a tryst for the destruction. So, tryst kind of here is the maw'ad or the time or some promise of them or something like that. Okay, look, as we said in this lecture series, we have discussed this, the verses in the Quran regarding Dhul al-Qarnayn. We tried and emphasize we can do a reading of these verses, which doesn't need any miraculous nature in it, no metaphysical thing. And Dhul al-Qarnayn was a ruler, a kingly ruler, a human, neither necessarily a prophet or a muhaddis or something like that. And we went through that. We looked at the hadiths. We said hadiths, contrary to Quranic verses, are mostly full of very metaphysical dimensions, miraculous events, but very often sometimes inconsistent and odd, and sometimes, as Allah Tabatabai puts it, irrational or unacceptable. The issue of Gog and Magog we discussed before, and will come again today for us, and maybe some interesting aspects. And then the other last bullet point, we going hopefully discuss it in the next two lectures, which is the most important, challenging, in some aspects, new parts of these lectures. And then I'm not going to go to the place of this Dhul al-Qarnayn story in the Surah Al-Kahf. We already discussed it. And then I'm not going to read the verses. I assume we are familiar with it. So in last lecture, we saw, because this lecture also, we closely follow on Mizan, but we intersperse it with some other information, supplementary information and additions. We went to the tafsir, Allama Tabatabai, and the summary of the Dhul al-Qarnayn story. And then he selected or emphasized or highlighted few points. If we want to find who is this Dhul al-Qarnayn historically is, who the Dhul al-Qarnayn historically is. There are other theories. For now, I'm not going to go through that. Some people said maybe it's just a story, made up story to have some morals. I really don't believe is the case. And you can see more and more as we go. Even the next lectures, I think we indicate he's a real historical person. Some person. Okay, there is another alternative theory, as I said. We had Rostam, which was a strong man, a brave man in maybe called Rostam Yalibudar Sistan, in Sistan, in southern eastern province of Iran. But then we had a Rostam which Shahnameh made, Rostam Dastan. Some people says Quran is not referring to, that's actually the arguments of the next two lectures. Quran is not referring to the historical figure, but is referring to mythical figure or storied figure or made-up story. That sometimes is possible, because if I ask you who's Sohrab or something like that, most of us are not thinking the historical figure. We are thinking of what Ferdowsi said in Shahnameh. This is kind of the more politer, or maybe the line some of these Western scholars adopted. But for now, no, our goal is to try to find some historical figure. So if there is a historical figure, it must have these minimal features which matches the Quranic verses. And I don't think these are very basic. If any people, if you have questions, maybe ask it, but I don't think not much disputable. So I read it again. We had them last lecture, but I read it again. But the person in the story has a name Zulqarnain. And then somehow his name must be Zulqarnain. And Zulqarnain says, we said is either the owner of two horns. That's mostly a people accepted. It could be two generations or 2 centuries, and the other word of Qarn, Qurun. Some people have gone that way. For now, we don't go that way. Most people accepted that, and that's kind of the line. We stick to it. But the name was given to him is not the name God give it to him. This one, for example, Zunnun, we are not sure was Hazrat Yunus. Is the name Quran give it to him? I mean, you have to investigate that. Or is the name he had or a nickname he had? So, but here it seems, at least Allah may conclude, but it's not a big deal, but still we have to try find in the history of that person how or why he should be called Zulqarnain. Um, and then because not only Quran called him Zulqarnain, it seems people who called him in the narration of the Quran called him Zulqarnain. Then he was a believing man, the second one. He believed in God, the final day, followed the religious truth. And this is again is cleared from the verses of 1898 and 1887. So this is a mercy from my Lord, but when the promise of my Lord comes to pass, he will make it level with the ground, and the promise of my Lord is ever true. So generally the promise is understood, but hereafter, but as we discussed, is generally could be a little bit sooner than that too. So for example, our each person death is before that necessarily the Qiyamah or something like that. And then, but generally he believes in some sense in God and the hereafter. As to him who, and then the second verse, as to him who's unjust, we will chastise him. Then shall he be returned to his Lord, and he will chastise him with an exemplary chastisement. So again, the whole idea of return to God is expressed from his mouth. Or another verse, and as for him who believes and does good. So all these verses shows that he really has a solid belief in God and hereafter. It adds to his religious standing that his words either give them a chastisement or do them a benefit, indicate he is being supported with revelation, inspiration, or one of God's prophet who was with him to guide him by communicating revelation to him. Yeah, I mean this part which God told him, or it seems God in some way is communicating with him. Some people take it revelation, something take it which we don't think necessarily is a prophet. Muhaddis, some people said maybe a prophet was with him, like Talut, but it could be ilham. Generally is some فَأَلْهَمَهُ فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا, or the same way the mother of Moses was wahy to him to don't be scared and leave the Moses with the cradle in the water. Again, we go to the minimal one, and I think still it works. We discussed that it could be. I mean, some people want to push it further, yeah. But at this minimally, we do not need to make him prophets or muhaddis, but he must be a righteous man, a righteous king. Third, he was one of those for whom God had brought together all the goods of this world, and the hereafter. But all the goods of this world doesn't mean he has supernatural powers. Generally, God give him, like a wealthy man, like a rich man, a good man, has many things he's access, and because of his righteousness in this world, will have good things in the hereafter. As for the good of this world, it was the mighty kingdom which took him from where the sun sets to when it rises. Again, these verses, this somehow here, uh, I a little bit, as I said, give different interpretation. There is no specific location that sun rises, or it shouldn't be very, very huge kingdom. So because it's a spherical world and it's not, you shouldn't go to the outer east or western part of the world. You see this, you see it in the word Ajabadi, and now here you see it could be translation, although Allama has both ways, sometimes go against this, sometimes go with this. This misunderstanding, and yeah, I have this slide, and actually I didn't put it here, and I have to emphasize this. It did not need to be huge land and huge all-compassing kingdom. It did not need to be from the Atlantic Ocean to Pacific Ocean, because some people are making it like that. We don't have such a king. I mean, it doesn't work. And it did not need to be, it just need to be decent sized, decent powerful. I mean, the kingdom of David and Solomon couldn't be that great. I mean, although they have all definitely much miraculous powers. So we should be careful. This misunderstanding. I'm going to show it again. I was thinking to bring pictures and maybe do it next time. I couldn't find time to find them. But look, nothing stood up to him, and all means of access were at his disposal. Again, in level of a king. It's not that he's really has everything. For the good of the hereafter, it was universal administration of justice, establishment of truth, forgiveness, pardon, gentleness, self-respect, spreading good and keeping evil at bay. Okay, anybody does that, we get the good of hereafter. These are all good of hereafter. These are all evidenced by his words. Surely we established him in the land. His words means God's words. Surely we established him in the land and granted him means of access to everything. Again, means access to everything is a typical of a king or a person at that time. He didn't have tablets, I don't know, aeroplane, and so on, as well as what can be inferred from the context, his physical and spiritual superiority. But let me go fast. Look, I want to emphasize this part because I know you know it and you heard it from me a couple of times. Maybe I should have skipped. Okay, let me skip. Uh, uh, this is Michigan. Okay, I kind of preferred my own state. If you really move to the east coast of it, you can see easily sunset. Okay, let's go to the west. You can see as Dhul al-Qarnayn. You go. This is Chicago here. You can be. I kind of see it somewhere. Yeah, Holland. You can see easily sunset, and exactly the way the Quran is described. Because Earth is spherical. As far as this other side of the lake is a little far away that you cannot easily see, and the curvature is enough, it goes behind the horizon. I mean, even it's not 500 miles away, 20, 30 miles away, it goes below the horizon. And then you don't see anything, just water, and then water reaching sky. And I mean, so lake water of blue of the water matches the blue of the sky, I mean, if it's open. And then if the sun rises, you really feel this coming out of this lake. Okay. And or going to the lake, and especially going to the lake is reddish, and the whole surface of the lake become dark and reddish, and even the lake himself is not necessarily like a Black Sea type, because the Black Sea was black, the Red Sea was red, and Mediterranean Sea seems it was called green. It's not like that. And then that I've seen, and then here also the other side you go. I mean, I kind of was near here. You can clearly see the sunrise, and then but for Zulkarnain it seems was a flat land. I mean, it's not necessarily water. So even you have some kingdom in the size of Michigan, you can see sunset one side, sunrise one side, and then okay, or one side be watery, one side be not. So we don't need it to make it so. This is because that's wrong. I mean, there is no place that sun really sets into the ocean or something. This is appearance. Okay, so I emphasized this before. I emphasize it one more time. Let me go back to the slide we were. Okay. So now this is the feature. So it doesn't need to go really move. I hear, I a little bit qualified what Tafsir and Mizan says. And then nothing, we said that, and then we said nothing stand against him. And so he has at the end, he says all of this indicate that he is a physical spiritual superiority. The fourth is that he came upon a nation of evildoers in the west and punished them. The fifth, the fortified barrier which he built was neither where the sun sets nor where it rises. Okay, that's again, we have to be careful where sun sets and rises. We shouldn't to make it too mythical, too far away. But it's somewhere possibly in the middle of this strip where it rises, because after he reached where the sun rises, he followed another course until he reached a place where the two mountains. Yeah, I mean, first he go to the west, then he go to the east, and then come back, and then the middle reaches this part. But this important, one of the important feature of his fortified barrier, in addition to not being in the west and east, was that it was between two mountains-like walls. He filled the space between the two mountains' sides and used blocks of iron and molten brass to build it. It had been it had to have been a mountain pass, which was the link between two of the populate world edges. Okay, this will be the crucial one. Okay, we discussed about Alexander, and we will come back again to Alexander even in this lecture and next lectures. So we were discussing about those kings of Yemen. I don't believe they fit, or we can go through that, but really we don't have time. So I prefer to go back to the Cyrus, because things should be explained as we going forward here. So we saw some of his Cyrus the Second. Cyrus the Second, Cyrus the Great, was the founder of Achaemenid Persian Empire. He coming from the provinces of this empire called Persis or Fars now, but then he was able to defeating the rival Median Empire. But he was married to the daughter of the king of Median Empire, or actually his mother. Yeah, and embracing of all previous civilized states of the ancient Near East, expanding vastly, eventually conquering most of West Asia and much of the Central Asia, to create that would soon become the largest polity in the human story at that time. It's huge, even by any standard, it's huge. The Achaemenid Empire largest territorial extent was achieved under Darius the Great, effectively the successor of Cyrus, whose rule stretched from the Balkans, eastern Bulgaria, Paonia, and Thrace in Macedonia in Greece, and the rest of southeast of Europe and in the west to the Indus Valley in the east. And I will show, after the conquering the Median Empire, Cyrus led the Achaemenids to conquer the Lydian Empire, eventually the Neo-Babylonian Empire. He also led an expedition into Central Asia, which resulted in major military campaigns that were described as having brought into subjection every nation without exception. Cyrus allegedly died in a battle with the Massagetha, a nomadic Eastern Iranian tribal federation along the Sird area in December 530 BC. However, this Herodot maybe said that. However, Ghezophon of Athens, which may be more accurate historian, he lived in Iran for a while. Ghezophon of Athens claimed that Cyrus did not die fighting. He was a contemporary Socrates too, a friend of Socrates. He's more accurate. He lived in Iran. That Cyrus did not die fighting. At least here the version in Iranians we're talking, because it was many years later, okay, after Cyrus. However, Ghezophon Athens claimed that Cyrus did not die fighting and instead returned to the city of Persepolis, which served as the Achaemenid ceremonial capital. He was succeeded by his son Cambyses II, which campaigns into North Africa led to the conquest of Egypt, Nubia, and Cyrenaica during his short lord. Okay, so look, this map is the one we are looking. This darker green is the one Cyrus made. And the lighter green is the addition of Darius and Cambyses. Yeah, Cambyses is between Cyrus and Darius. So by the time of Darius, you have all this. But you can see the regions I want you to focus is this area. Maybe the battle they allege he died was here. And then this word Scythians is important, what we discussed later on. Here again, we're talking steppe nomads, like the people which do not housing or they were not protected from the sun in that sense. They're nomads a little bit. And then the region here will be our area of looking. I personally believe the sea that the sun set most probably is Black Sea. Around here, because there was some unruly tribal people here too, especially later on. Even they go fought here a little bit in Crimean Peninsula too, and other ones. We'll see that, but it could be here to Mediterranean or even here, because he goes definitely. Lydia is important, and the Greek culture right here. So somewhere around here, that setting sun can easily happen. And Then the eastern part is around here, anywhere here, which, as I said, Khorasan means where the sun rises. Khurasa, Khurshid is coming up, sun is coming up. It could be anywhere here, because it's very flat on flat lands, and then you lost the horizon. If there's no mountain between you, desert steppes here, and then you can see again the land matches the sky, the blue of the sky. Like Ukraine is like that, the map of Ukraine, yellow and blue, exactly signing that yellow is the wheat, uh, you know, the lands full of wheat, and then the blue is the sky. They reach each other. So, and then the one which is the dam or the barrier is built is around Caspian Sea, is either here or here. So that's kind of our theory is. So look, this is the western trip, this is the eastern trip, and this is the middle trip. And the one that is built, and this is kind of the map I want you to have in mind. So now this is the discussion Allama chose after mentioning he discussed some other people, as I said, Alexander, some of the, and then they've said some ancient Iranian kings, they said some people around the time of Noah, they mentioned. Next lecture, maybe we have to look a little bit careful to Gilgamesh, but that's another story. So let's focus today on Cyrus, because we cannot do everything, but at least let's do this in detail. Okay, again, Allama says, and I want to read some of this, and I really am going to read it and then explaining it. This would be better. It is said that Zulqarnain was Cyrus, one of the Achaemenid kings. This is Allama says, who ruled from this year to this year, 560 to 539 BC. It was he who founded the Iranian Empire and united Persia and Media. He subjugated Babylonian. We saw this. Because I saw it from the other source, I put it, but I'm not repeating the same thing. He subjugated Babylonian, allowed the Jews to return from Babylonian to Jerusalem, helped build the temple, subjugated Egypt and crossed to Greece, defeated the Greeks, and reached far west. He then traveled to the far east of the civilized world. So really, his travel is the biggest of anyone at those age. One of those to close our time. Now, Allama doesn't mention his name, and we are going to see. One of those close to our time has said so. That is, he says, one of the people has proposed this, because till that time, as I said, most Muslim scholars was also, at least the western part, we're talking Alexander in the eastern part, they were proposing some people, but it was not unanimity, maybe some ancient Iranian kings. Okay, we'll see who it is in the next slide. And then subsequently, an Indian researcher has recently exerted efforts to clarify, explain. So we have two scholars from Indian subcontinent. We'll see Sir Syed Ahmad Khan Hindi. First, he proposed the theory. And then we have Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, which came after him, to try to elaborate, explain, and expand on his theory. So a brief explanation. Okay, then Allah will start to give a summary, and then we are going to read the summary. And that summary, I think, is a strong argument for why maybe it's Kurosh or Cyrus. A brief explanation is that the one who is referred to the Quran as Zulqarnain has to be this great King Cyrus, because he had a monotheistic belief in God, was fair with his subjects, merciful, gentle, did good, and subjugated oppressors and aggressors. I mean, okay, you may dispute these words. Allah himself is a little bit lukewarm agreeing, because this time of Shah, and in the time of Shah was Iranian nationalism was promoting, which some of it was built on this pre-Islamic glory of Achaemenids. And then he's narrating what the theory is. We will narrate it the strongest form. And then there could be some weaknesses, but at least let's see what it says. So God granted him the means of access to everything. He had religion, reason, good etiquette, funds, power, vote, courage, and means at his disposal, which kind of matched the criteria Allah said. Now, these two gentlemen, before going further, it's good to see that the gentlemen, These are important personality in the history of Muslims in the Indian subcontinent, especially Sir Syed Ahmad Khan has very influential role, and Maulana Abul Kalam Azad also, after Indian independence, has some position in the government. Okay, Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, he was part of many of educated societies of England and so on. Was a Muslim reformer, philosopher, educationist in 19th century British India. I mean, I want you to listen. This guy now I'm looking, he really, now we have, they very well educated. They knew a lot. Now I'm looking, the first time I read this stuff maybe 20 years ago, I didn't appreciate it. I appreciate it, but not as much. When I was doing it, I mean, because some of this stuff, knowing it, I mean, at that time in India, without any all internet, all this stuff is great. Though initially espousing Hindu-Muslim unity, he later became the pioneer of Muslim nationalism in India. So these two are a little bit different. You will see that. And is widely credited as the father of two-nation theory. So he's one of the one Muhammad Ali Jinnah followed, and then they decided to separate Pakistan from India, which formed the basis of the Pakistan movement. Born into a family with strong ties to Mughal court, that pre-Islamic Islamic rulers of India before British came. Ahmed studied science and the Quran within the court. He was awarded an honorary LLD from the University of Edinburgh in Scotland. In 1838, Sayyid Ahmed entered the service of East India Company. He went to become judge at the small causes court in 1867, retiring from his position. And during the Indian Rebellion mutiny of 1857, he remained loyal to the British Raj. So didn't fight against British, and was noted for his actions in saving European lives. So he maybe get the honor of Sir because of these activities at that time. After rebellion, he penned the booklet, The Causes of the Indian Mutiny, a daring critic at the time of various British policies that blamed for causing the revolt. So he criticized Britain, but he didn't participate in the revolt. So believing that the future of Muslims was threatened by the rigidity of their orthodox outlook, Sir Ahmad began promoting Western-style scientific education by founding modern school journals, organizing Islamic entrepreneurs. So you see, this is this mindset. And then Abul Kalam, I mean, this is also, you can see some people are not a little bit suspicious when he proposed this kind of ideas. You have to know that there is hesitant. Okay, who says this? Oh, Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. Okay. Al-Mutahari has also some discussions about him too. Abul Kalam Ghulam Muhyiddin, not about Cyrus, but his other ideas. Abul Kalam Ghulam Muhyiddin Ahmed ibn Khairuddin al-Husayni Azad, maybe, I don't know, I think maybe he was, I'm not sure it was Shia, but let's look. Al-Husayni al-Azad was an Indian independence activist, writer, and senior leader of the Indian National Congress. Following Indian independence, he became the first Minister of Education in the government. So he was in the government of Gandhi. He's commonly remembered as Maulana Azad, award Maulana honorific title. His contribution establishing the Education Foundation in India is recognized by celebrating his birthday as National Education Day across India, which is important. I mean, India has relatively good education system, especially university. Okay, now we kind of know who are these people which proposing this theory, and then we go back to the continuation where we were, because I a little bit skipped. So we were talking that Cyrus has everything, and then the continuation Allama says, which today will be like that. We occasionally interrupt what Allama is saying, and then we put some explanatory thing, and we continue the line. Okay, then is Cyrus, means Cyrus traveled as described by God in his book, once toward the west until he had seized Lydia, which we cite in the summary of Wikipedia, was there, and its environs. He then traveled again, this time toward the east until he reached where the sun set. So here should be rise. I mean, this the mistake of translators. There he encountered a nomadic savage people who lived in the steppes. He then built, so this is in Al-Mizan, kind of match what we were saying previous lectures and on the map. He then built but this is, although I have to say, it's not necessarily Allama's opinion. It is Abul Kalam Azad and Sir Syed Ahmad Khan in these views. He then built the barrier. Evidence indicates that it's a barrier constructed across the Darial Pass. This is important. And in the Caucasus Mountains near the city of Tbilisi. And then Allama said, this is the gist of what he says, and those two gentlemen said. And then here are the details. So first, Allama gave a summary of the theory of those two persons. and then now going to some filling in the details, which we will go through that. But before that, we need to go to this Darial Pass, and this is important. Look, these passes, and then we'll see next two lectures, this will be important. These passes are called Caspian. This set of pass sometimes called gates. Is a difference of the word, and then gates. We go on with Dhu al-Qarnayn. We're talking about dams. These have become gates. Okay, the barriers have become gates, which possibly means they can open up. Or what we call pass means these gates or barrier or dams are built in these passes, which are narrow passes. And then sometimes they're called Caspian gates. Sometimes they're called Caucasus gates. And then you have to clarify all these. These are all the source of confusion from ancient times and even till now. And some of this must be clarified. The next few slides, that's the important one. That's the important one even for the next two lectures. Is about geography a little bit, but let's see what the summary is. Now, unfortunately, everybody's called them gates of Alexander. And then look what happened. Pre-Islamic times, there was some reason to do that, we'll see. After Islamic times, again, by the mistake, the name was there or the name mistakenly was there. It was associated, because Dhul al-Qarnayn was associated or identified with Alexander. Again, there was more incentive. And all the people guess where they are, and other people in that region also have the incentive. Okay, this is the place. And we see it in many other places. Okay, this is the place. For example, if you are on a map, people want to claim, for example, this Qadamgah Imam Reza. And then maybe Imam Reza never had been there. Okay, actually, I also forgot. I should have congratulated everybody for the occasion of birthday Imam Reza alayhi salam. So unfortunately, I'm doing it in the middle of it. But that's our occasion, inshallah, tomorrow. So good, I remembered. So, but look, all people start to claim different places as what we, for now, the name is Gates of Alexander, but sometimes called Caspian, sometimes Caucasus. Okay, the Gates of Alexander, known as Caspian Gates, are one of several mountain passes in eastern Anatolia, the Caucasus, and the Persia, separating Greco-Roman world from the Persian world. But we'll see more than the Greco-Roman world this is maybe not as accurate, is separating Persian world with the which is in the south, with what nomadic steppe people on the north. They're often imagined as actual fortification, as symbolic boundaries separating the civilized form from the uncivilized world. So you see this definition, these are from, again, internet, not from, matches what we kind of, the feeling, understanding of regarding that dam was. The original gates of Alexander were just south of the Caspian Sea. I will show it to you in real ray, where Alexander crossed while pursuing Darius III. The name was transferred to passes through the Caucasus on the other side of Caspian by the more fanciful historians of Alexander, by the people, by some very interesting accidents. Look, let me show you and then come back here. Look, this is Ray, near the south of Tehran. Alexander truly must have passed around here at the time he invaded Iran and following Darius III. And it could be this place has been really called Alexander the Gate. Where exactly was, we don't know. But you know, if you want to go to the Caspian Sea, there are eastern route, northern route, and all of them you have to go passing narrow regions. I'm inclined he took up the eastern route. We know Alexander and his soldier has tasted Caspian Sea, the water of it, and have reported, the Greeks have reported this is less salty, which they're right. This Caspian Sea water is still salty, it's not sweet, but it's less salty than Mediterranean and Black Sea. So I think they did. And I'm believing now there is a road going to the east, Haraz or Firuzkool. Haraz especially is really dangerous sometimes. It must, I'm inclined to take the eastern route, because then they ending up in this parts, in Afghanistan, then they end up in India. And then one other thing you should know also, we know a famous Alexandria built here in Egypt, which again, next lecture could be some relevance. But there are other, he made many Alexandria cities. and then few are around here. And then even we have villages this Greek soldiers settled. And it's still till recent times there are there. Even they say there are some Greek-speaking ones still. I mean, that I'm a little bit to check again, but features, physical features are completely different. So there are some left over from that, they lived and intermarried together. So so this is the true pass. Somewhere around here, or it was narrow, or they made it up, but you can know if you looked at the two roads going, because I think there are two roads from east going to the Caspian Sea, and a kind of effectively two roads. I'm not sure the other one, which is shorter from Chalus, is open, but the other one was Vin and Rash is the other one. So we have two roads from the east going to Caspian Sea, two roads from the west. Okay, and then this is the first one. Okay, but the other ones which we are more interested is this. These three are important. And all these three have been proposed, and we are going to see it as the possible dams of Qarnayn made. My belief and the way Maulana Abul Kalam Azad and Sir Ahmad Khan Hindi say is this one, which I think is closest. But there all confusion happened because people confuse Sassanids, Achaemenids, and so on. This is the one we see Darial Derbent, which Darial Pass. This is Derbent, or D, like Turkey D become T. Derbent Pass. This is near Georgia, present-day Georgia, Republic, and Russia. This is closer to Azerbaijan. And then you see here it says map showing. Okay, and then we have this one. This region was called Hyrcania, and there is a big wall here near Gorgan. Again, we will see it, which Sassanids built it. So some people later on proposed this one. So look, nobody has proposed this one as the Zulqarnain one, but this is the true Alexander Gate, or the Alexander Pass, or Alexander Barrier or Dam. So all, if I use it, interchangeable. But then all these other ones, all the other three candidates wrongly have been claimed Alexander Gate or Pass or Dam. And to some degree, I think there could be some possibility being the right candidate. The most score goes to Dariel, then maybe to this one, I'm less inclined. And there are some interesting parts in Gorgon one. If we change the personality of Zulqarnain from Cyrus to Anushiravan, which I know is odd, but it could have worked, except we'll see that this dam has a problem, doesn't have metal in it. Okay, so, and Hyrcania was here, and the Caspian Sea, so you see the four candidates. So let's read some of them. Various other passes in the Caucasus and Anatolia have been called. And then some people in Anatolia they start to find some ideas here too, but those definitely are not the one. I mean, really, they're later and different. Various other passes in Caucasus and Anatolia have been called the gates of Alexander since at least first century Common Era. So this is an old thing, pre-Islamic one. Later, the Caspian gates were also identified the pass of Derbent in modern Dagestan, or on the Caspian, or with the pass of Darial, or gorge forming a pass between Georgia and North Ossetia, Alania. Tradition also connects to the Great Wall of Gorgan, Red Snake, Ghazal Alan, on its southern eastern shore. These fortifications were historically part of the defense lines by the Sasani Persians, while the Great Wall of Gorgan may have been built by the Parthians. Okay. The other thing is that we are talking, Cyrus may build something here, but later on, Sassanids also ruled these places, and then these are natural barriers, and they were part of their defensive lines. Definitely this one, and this one. So these three were among the defensive lines of Sassanids. So you see, you have two big Persian kingdom, which some aspects also, they're very similar. They claim being Zoroastrian, although we have doubts that really, we're not sure Cyrus and Darius are Zoroastrian. They talk about Ahura Mazda, they're somewhat monotheist, but the name of Zoroaster is nowhere in the inscriptions. So we have some complications over there. But Sassanids are Zoroastrian, and then also Sassanids claim they get lineage from Achaemenids and so on. And this is, so have in mind Dario, Derbent, and Gorgon in mind. Okay, I'm going to a little bit explain more. So let's see. Look, the one which we think it is this is the two mountains. And this is the picture 1906. I don't know what has happened now. Did do any change on it? There's a river going between it. It's like Valley Panjshir in Afghanistan. It's a very narrow pass, and it matches the description Quran has. It matches the level of technology ability. If they want really put a dam or barrier here and blocking the passage. This picture was taken in 1906. So this is the one which we really more inclined to it. This is the one in Derbent. Okay, I forgot to put, yeah, it's here, Derbent, the one to the east. This is more longer fortifications, about 3 of these barrows, 30s longer, near more close to the sea. And I don't, and a little bit more later, it doesn't match with the Cyrus as much, but we'll see. Actually, there is a caveat, some aspects of it, maybe it was around here, but I don't see as that kind of geography, narrow mountains, narrow pathways, which those guys which come to Zulkarnain and ask him to build for us. Then we have this Gorgon one, which is really long. This is about 200 kilometer after China's wall, which is okay, 6,000 kilometer. This is the biggest barrier, man-made barrier in ancient times. This is part of the sea, the Caspian Sea, Gorgon, Astarabat, and Akola, and Rumishan, and this is part of their barrier. I mean, you can accept it, which I don't think fitted. If we go that reading Jabadi Amali, which Quran doesn't use the word Jabal or Tur, it talk about Sad and Sadafain. So you can assume if there was other barrier before built and there was some break in it, some opening in it, and asking him to fill it in. But this again, I mean, doesn't match Cyrus, and also really the problem here is there's no metal. This is brick. This is called red snake because it's using all the red bricks, which kind of we are familiar around with. Made from khaki rose, muddy, I don't know English one. And then the thing is important is this wall is believed to have protected Sasanian Empire to the south from the people of the north, and the one they called white Huns. And then this is, word Huns next lecture become important. So those who attacks, which we generally call them Turanian, and then some nomadic people, maybe Turkic, Iranic people, the same we have Central Asia, Tajiks, we can call it more Iranian, maybe Uzbek, Kazakh, Kyrgyz are more Turkic people. So that kind of mixture attacking is called white Huns. This is that Gorgon Dam, which some of it is discovered underneath of the earth, and then you see the bricks over there. So and so this doesn't seem to be the candidate. This is a map. I want you to, again, you see this, the one in the Gorgon one. Look, the names are given to it. Among archaeologists, the wall is the one in Gorgon, which is, this is Hyrcania. Hyrcania is around here. The wall is somewhat around here. And then look, those who attack, they call them Scythians, but look, they're east here. This will be a crucial point here. And then it says, among archaeologists, the wall is known the red snake or Ghazal Alan, Turkmen, because the color is bricks. We saw them, they were red, in Persia, it was popularized by name Alexander Barrier. Again, they called it Alexander Barrier, which is definitely nothing related to real Alexander. Maybe everybody get the name and just, oh, this is the one. Or Alexander Wall, which again, for them, maybe mixing Alexander Zorani together. As Alexander the Great is thought by early Muslims to pass through the Caspian Gates. But then they call this Caspian Gates. But if this is Caspian Gates, it must be near Shahr-e-Ray. Caspian Gates and hasty march to Hyrcania and the east. There is also no Anushiravan barrier, which I think is more accurate name. Sada Anushiravan and Piruz or Piruz barrier. So this is the one, and is officially referred to as Gorgon defense wall, Divar de Faya Gorgon, or Ghazal Ala. Okay, and then the Scythians have in mind here, it has it in the left side. Which usually, at least I understood in the Persian mythology, Rostam, stuff like that, I was always thinking the Turanians are more Eastern. Rostam is around here, and the Vars are here. And then this part of Iran always is problematic. I mean, the last 2,500 years. They never, we claim we controlled them, but they never easily absorbed part of the Iranian government. Is the way like Americans controlled Afghanistan, or even central government have controlled Afghanistan. They were 20, or even Iraq, they were 20 years in Afghanistan, but never have complete control. Always be a problem. You know, in the time of Safavid, we had problem. In time of, uh, uh, Kurosh, we had problem. It seems he either lost the battle or died in the battle. Darius had the problem here. Sassanids have the problem here. We'll see that. So, I mean, even recently, they don't necessarily consider them Iranian. You know, I heard recently the leader of Iran was talking with the president of Kazakhstan. He tried to pitch to them unity, but the answer they give is a little bit different. They all remember a queen maybe killed Cyrus and cut his head. I mean, this is maybe meat, but so I mean, they're Muslim then for a while, and then at the time, Bukhara and Samarkand was part of the Islamic Empire. The Samanids were ethnically more Turkic type. So Seljuk, Samani. So this is a big part, and always Turanian were here. But the story we're talking is mostly here. At least if I want to go Cyrus, I know Cyrus was here. I show you the map. He was here, fighting here, going around here, and that's the part I think the Eastern people are, the steppe people. We don't know how they dress maybe that time, but I'm thinking the whole means they didn't have buildings. They don't have buildings. And this part is, okay, we'll focus on. Yeah, this is what I was saying. These people here at the time of Sassanids, or even earlier, they built a huge kingdom called Hephthalites. And then you can read, and it's sometimes they're called white Huns and sometimes called Iranian Huns, to distinguish from the Huns which later on attack Europe and sack even Italy and Rome. So that's, you see, these guys come and suddenly attack inside the plateaus of either going inside the Europe or deep in Iran. That's the scare people had, these guys attacking, coming the same way Mongols did to us, to Iranians, or inside come all here. And this Hephthalites, I think, defeated Sassanids in 5th century, and it was a big defeat. I mean, so Sassanid, we know, were mostly fighting with the Romans or Byzantines, but also this kingdom was a big nemesis for them and fought with them. And even the conquest of Islamic world, these lands were conquered much later on. Look, the most conquering much of the plateau of Iran and even east of Pakistan and a part of Afghanistan was done in the time of Osman, was done. Imam Ali stopped conquest, Muawiyah start to add a little bit, but really conquering these parts, Samarkand, Balkh, Bukhara, takes time. I mean, until Ma'mun was here, governor, they made a barrack here, they made it Marb like Kufa and Basra. So these are long stories. So, okay, this is the part we have to have in mind. So the question is that, is it the eastern part? If is it eastern part, then we can talk about Gorgon wall, but Gorgon wall doesn't seem to have metal in it. It's too long. And the reason I'm saying, usually the people from the attack from here was more common for some reason. But okay, we come back to the west and then we see, okay, no, the west also something is there too. So let's see, I think I covered the part of these 4 dams. Again, I mean, I maybe said less here, we'll see it more later on. But remember, there are 3 real candidates, which I think Gorgon will go off to, and then these 2. Okay, what time is it? Okay. Now, so we go getting the continuing the story. We said this one here. We stop here. That the summary. This is the gist of what he says here. The details. Okay, the details are interesting. His belief in God and the final day. Proof of that is the Old Testament. Cyrus is a very, very positive figure in the Old Testament. So, for example, the book of Ezra, chapter 1. Ezra is the one he led to return to Jerusalem. Uzair, and it seems some people say he rewrote the Bible. I mean, we have to see, these are the detailed story. We don't need to go through that. Ezra chapter 1, the book of Daniel chapter 6, the book of Isaiah chapter 44 and 45 lies in his being exalted and described as the holy, to the point that he is as the Lord shepherds. Isaiah 41:1 said, for this Isaiah 45, I kept the translation, which English translation of Al-Mizan had it. But a little bit is harder. I am not sure which translation they use. So the next one I changed it. Thus said the Lord to his anointed Cyrus, to Cyrus. Anointed means exactly the title of Messiah, Masih, because Masih means anointed means the one who has put good oil on them. They used to do kings or perfumes were expensive, and mix the perfumes with the oil, and then for the kings or the rulers or those who achievements, they give those oil, and they kind of means anointing them, and that and the meaning become Messiah and Mashiach, and then the Greek Jews assume more than the Messiah is really okay, Jesus or the one comes, but there were other messiahs. The same way Mahdi, uh, I is a technical name, but you have sometimes Mahdi, have used other people too. Uh, Lord anointed to Cyrus, whose right hand I have holden. So God means he has hold his right hand. Means when God holds the right hand of somebody is really helping him to subdue nations before him and to loose the loin of kings, to open the doors before him, and that the gates may not be shut. I will go before you and make the crooked places straight. So it means God is helping him in everything he does. I will break in pieces the doors of brass and cut in sunder bars of iron. Now look, the words brass and iron is coming here. And that is interesting. We see next lecture, and it's somehow maybe related also to, Dhul al-Qarnayn dam was, it's different. It's different metal, but you see the next lecture. This is the Daniel. This is the Christian prophecy. So, and I will give you the treasures of darkness and hidden riches of secret places, that thou mayest know that I am the Lord who call you by thy name, even the God of Israel. Okay, for the sake of Jacob, my servant, and Israel, my elect, I have called you by thy name. I have surnamed you, though thou hast not known me. God told him, although you don't know me, I'm the God of the Israelites, but okay. Okay, this terminology, okay, I'll read this one for now, just to read it. Putting aside the fact that it is revelation, the Jews with their chauvinism would not consider politistic, idolatrous, Zoroastrian, if that is what Cyrus was, to be divinely appointed, rightly guided, supported Messiah or shepherd for the Lord. Whether Zoroastrian idolatrous is the misunderstanding of, this is not Alama's word. This is really Maulana Abul Kalam Azad or the Sir Syed Ahmad Khan Hindi's view, and then mostly the views that non-Iranian Muslims have about Zoroastrianism. But overall, they're arguing if really Cyrus was politistic, maybe Jews wouldn't receive him as much. But this is the argument. Furthermore, archaeological cuneiform engravings and writings about Darius the Great, who lived just 8 years after Cyrus, speak of Darius being a monotheist. So, proclamation of Darius, the successor or the second successor after Cyrus, is really monotheistic, not polytheistic. And it is inconceivable there would be a change from Cyrus' religion in such a passage of short time. So Ahura Mazda is really the God. And so these are the arguments. As for his personal merits, so kind of goes that part. As for his personal merits, it is enough to refer to details about him and information on his lifestyle, which are recorded, and see how he dealt with the tyrants, despots, and rebelled against him or waged war against him. For example, the kings of Media, Lydia, Babylonia, and Egypt. The tyrannical Bedouin on the outskirts of Bactria in the Balkh. So see, so he have to have some tough fights in this part about, so Cyrus had a difficult time, but he's here is the one sun rises around here. And elsewhere, wherever he defeated the people, would forgive their criminals, treat their nobles with respect, treat their poor and compassion, and subdue the mischief makers and treacherous among them. Okay, this is a little bit idealized version of treating him, but still not off. I think he was better than Darius in this respect. And then if you didn't do that, you couldn't make that big kingdom. Look, they, as a policy, they didn't change much of the structure of the places they conquer. The military unit was Persian in the sense of Fars. The same way Arab Muslim conquest was there. Look, they didn't change the plateau of Iran. The people were living like that, just they need to pay tax. But they have the garrison cities like Kufa, Basra, and then later Merv. So the military units, the Hutu participated in Futuhat or doing the wars, or the Arabs. The same Cyrus and Achaemenid did it. You know, as far as they have enough Persians by ethnically Persians from Fars, this would work. The books of the Old Testament exalt him and the Jews accorded him the greatest respect because he freed them from captivity in Babylon, returned them to the homeland, gave them money to rebuild the temple, and returned the valuables stolen from the temple and stored in the Babylonian king vaults. This in itself further support for Zulqarnain being Cyrus, because the question about Zulqarnain was at the prompting of the Jews according to oral traditions. Yeah, this is also makes, if they really we accept those hadiths of Shannon and Zul, that Jews ask the uh, tell the Quraysh, ask who he is. This makes sense because Jews wouldn't ask. You know, there must be something there, like something's related to them. Sometimes some person they know. Ancient Greek historians, for example, Herodot and others referred to him. They could do nothing but describe him as manly, heroic, magnanimous, charitable, forgiving, generous, merciful, compassionate, depressing profusely. I mean, Phone, which we talked about him, he wrote about the education of Cyrus. So as an example, how the Greeks should be educated. So that this parts means at least has a good reputation. Now we have to answer some other thing. Why he is called Zulqarnain? Even though historical records are free of anything that proves the recent discovery, but I mean, it's not as clear. Even though historical records are free of anything that proves that, why Kurosh should be called Zulqarnain, the owner of two horns. But remember, we said this is some mythology or some understanding, some source of power, heavenly or earthly power, maybe from other kingdoms in Assyria, Babylonia. People claim that. But, you know, we need to be a little bit specific. But he says that the recent discovery of a stone statue of him at the monument of Merghab in the south of Iran eliminate any doubt that he was described as Zulqarnain, because his likeness had been sculpted with two horns growing out of the crown of his head from a single spot. So this is the two horns splitting from one point. Some horns are from two different points. One bent toward the front and one bent toward the back. Okay, so it seems they find some statues somewhat ascribing a horn to him. This is similar to one ancient's opinion on the reason why Zulqarnain was so called, that he had a crown and a helmet with two horns on it. So this is their argument. And then there is a very more important one regarding him, calling him Zulqarnain, is the prophecy in the book of Daniel. This is Daniel. It's very important. This is very important for Christians right now. The same way you look to some hadiths predicting the future, the Asr Zuhur and coming Imam Zaman, which Qurani, which was one of the scholars, really did great breakthroughs in this regard. Unfortunately, passed away last night. His book Asr Zuhur was very famous and very influential in many circles. So this narration in the book of Daniel will become important because I'm going to read it, because here in the dream of Daniel, which is a prophet, and then we know that Daniel effectively lived in Iran or buried in Iran, ascribing him or see him as a person, Cyrus of Persian Empire with the two horns. So this, so the ascription of two horns, get the biblical stuff. Okay, I read it from the other translation. The translation Al-Mizan is harder and a little bit ambiguous. This is New International Version, is easiest and it's good, accurate, and easy to read. So for now, we read that. In the third year of King Belshazzar reign, he was a king in Babylon, and then Daniel, which were Jewish, and his companions were taken to his kingdom. This book of Bible has some interesting features. It's the only book that some prophet is Aramaic, it's not Hebrew, and shows the sojourn of the or the presence of Jews in Babylon. So, which is the official language of the kingdom. Even Persian kingdom was Aramaic. The documents was written Aramaic, and then Babylonia was the real capital of Persian Empire for a long time. Even later, I mean, Sassanids, you go Mesopotamia between the two rivers, and even before that, in the time of Achaemenids, Babylonian is really was the city. So it was like in New York, even if officially sometimes wasn't the capital, but it's really the power was there. Okay, the third year of the king Belshazzar reigned, I, Daniel, had a vision after the one that already appeared to me. So there were some visions, so we don't go through them. In my vision, I saw myself in the citadel of Susa, which is Shush in southern province of Khuzestan, Iran, or Elam, in the province of Elam. In the version, I was beside the Ulai canal, so it must be canal, a river inside Elam. I looked up, and there before me was a ram with two horns. So the ram with two horns is Cyrus, or the Persian Empire, standing beside the canal, and the horns were long. So that's kind of like that statue. The horns were long. One of the horns was longer than the other, but grew up later. Uh, I watched the ram as he charged toward the west and the north and the south. And look, kind of the travels it does. No animal could stand against it, means no other kingdom can stand it, and none could rescue from its power. It did as it pleased and become great. And as I was thinking about this, suddenly a goat with a prominent horn between its eyes came from the west. This is Alexander. At least this is the understanding of Alexander. Crossing the whole earth without touching the ground, it came toward the two-horned ram I had standing beside the canal and charged at it in a great rage. Other two-horned ram is maybe Persian Empire, Achaemenid Empire, more than Cyrus. But Cyrus is the founder, the beginner, the initiator, the visible face. I saw it attack the ram furiously, striking the ram and shattering its two horns. The ram was powerless to stand against it. The goat knocked it to the ground and trampled on it, and none could rescue the ram from its power. The goat became very great, but at the height of its power, the large horn was broken off, and its place, four prominent horns grew up toward the four winds of heaven. So you see the goat now is too big, but then it also split in four parts. But we don't go to the goat. I don't want to go continue, but this one part, Gabriel came and explaining this dream to Daniel. So this is Gabriel. Yeah, Gabriel told this man the meaning of the vision, and I heard a man's voice from Ulai calling, Gabriel, tell this man the meaning of the vision. So telling the Daniel, God sent to Gabriel, tell Daniel what the meaning of the vision said, and he said, Gabriel said, he said, I'm going to tell you what will happen later in the time of wrath, because the vision concerns the appointed time of the end. And then look, again, appointed time of the end is not end, even in this biblical. Because it's talking about something after Daniel, but it's not, it's 2,000 years ago, 2,500 years ago. So again, dam of Zulqarnain is you shouldn't get really an end. The two-horned ram that you saw represent the kings of Media and Persia. The shaggy goat is the king of Greece, and the large horn between his eyes is the first king. The four horns that replace the one that was broken off represent four kingdoms that will emerge from his nation, but will not have the same power. Which we know that after Alexander, his kingdom divided between these generals. Seleucids and other ones. So, okay, this is the biblical kind of two-horn relationship. So here we continue with Al-Mizan. Then he says, he then mentions, after recounting the whole of the dream, that Gabriel appeared to him and interpreted his dream in such a way that the ram with two horns applies to Cyrus, his two horns being the two kingdoms of Persia and Media. The rough he-goat with a single horn was Alexander of Macedon. So as for his journey to the west and the east, so now we kind of see, okay, the two horns somewhat can be associated to him. As for his journey to the east and west, his journey to the west was to push back the tyrant of Lydia, who had led his troops wrongly and unfairly without any justification towards Cyrus. We saw it kind of before. Cyrus advanced on him and routed him. He then followed him until he besieged him in the capital of his kingdom. Lydia is really near the western edge of Turkey, near the sea. So there you definitely can see the sunset. And then if this is the bad king, as the Quran says, so he decided how to treat him. He then conquered it and took him prisoner, exactly kind of those verses suggest, but pardon him and all his supporters. So exactly is the part Quran says, we give him option, what you want to do, and he said, okay, if they're really wrongdoers, you want to punish them, but the other ones I will forgive as far they're doing good, accepting to treat good. Treat him and them with respect. So he was different. He conquered the kingdom and then lived them to be there. He was good to them, even though he was entitled to dominate them and eliminate them. Yeah, I mean, he was there. I mean, we have to know he wasn't such a way a prophet that he wants to change politics to monotheism. Look, we are not prophet too. We don't have the duty to go out convert people. Okay, it's good we can do it, but we don't have. But when you're a prophet, you have the duty. So Cyrus wasn't a prophet. So shouldn't people say, oh, he didn't convert this idol worship? I mean, maybe just keep them, okay, do whatever you do as far as uh, maybe show them his own way. Maybe he attract them to convert to his own way. But, I mean, we have to do limit what we mean by good. We shouldn't make him a prophet. Okay, and then Allah continues the word in the verse until, or I mean, the people referring to this word, the word in the verse until when he reached the place where the sun set, he find it's going down into the Black Sea may apply to the west coast of Asia Minor. That was my view first from the beginning. Could be Black Sea itself, Dark Sea, or maybe better the west coast of Asia Minor. I mean, we can Lydia and stuff like that, which were the Greek settlements from ancient times. The words in the verse, and found by it a people we said, O Zog Arne, either give them a chastisement or do them a benefit, it is because they deserve to be punished for their tyranny, wrongdoing, and mischief. Okay. So this is also regarding the Lydia's king. So he could punish them or forgive them. He had the option, and he decided to do them. Then he journeyed toward the great desert in the east of steppes, as I said, near the Aral Sea, east of Caspian Sea, around Bactria, to suppress the danger presented by the savage nomadic tribes. We know he was there. We know there are flatland. We know there you look to the sky, to the horizon, you feel sun is rising. So historically, as I said, Khorasan means that. So it's that, which had risen up there to attack and cause mischief. The applicability of the West until when he reached the land of the rising of the sun, he find is rising on a people to whom he had given no shelter from it. To that is clear. Okay, here they should have explained a little bit more. Allah doesn't explain. The book of Maulana Abul Kalam Azad is published, but I didn't find time to go through it. But I still, the whole issue of nothing protect them from the sun, I guess they didn't have, as some hadith says, no building, no shelter, they were nomadic, and so on. But if needed, we can look more. Now we come into the more main one because this is the main story of is the dam, because that's a crucial one. That's a crucial one if we can hand them. And then we'll see that will be also for the next two lectures. The next two lectures is not historical, but is a challenge or question or doubt or something or some new thing, a way of looking has been raised by some Western scholarship, which is also important. In some aspects important. The barrier which is there, so we a little bit mentioned the barrier when we talk about more. So now Maulana Abul Kalam Azad and Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, they also go for Darial Pass, the first one which I said. And then they say the Darial Pass may be a corruption of the word Daryul, which means pass in Turkish. In the regional, now interesting, look, this is the translators added. In the regional vernacular, the barrier is called Dimir Kapu, meaning iron gate. Dimir Kapu, iron gate. So you see this barrier, already people are calling Dimir Kapu, means iron gate. This is interesting, because already something in the cultural memory, a presence of iron, which is the really important, unique feature of the story of the Dhul al-Qarnayn Dam is reflected. Now, the barrier which is there in Caucasus Mountains, pass stretches from the Caspian Sea to the Black Sea, is called the Darial Pass. It is between the town of Tbilisi and Vladikavkaz, so it's in the Caucasus and between Russia and Georgia. This barrier is in a pass between two towering mountains, which gives the feeling of the verses has been historically that. Extending from its two sides, the pass alone is the gap linking the north and south side of mountains, and the mountain with what is adjacent to them. That is the Caspian Sea and the Black Sea. is a natural barrier extending thousands of kilometers, blocking South Asia from North Asia. I mean, it's hard to pass. There is another pass that Darbandi Khan, but maybe getting to it is our Darban Pass, but this is maybe the important one. I mean, okay. During those times, evil people living in the Northeast Asia, or we can say, would attack from the Caucasus Mountain pass to its surrounding to the south. Look, this is important. Historically happened, especially before the Cyrus. So, I mean, word evil, those nomadic people, raiders. I mean, now we have it in Sudan, whether they're evil or not. I mean, there's always a fight between nomadic settled people. The nomadic people usually are doing with cattle, and the settled people doing agriculture. The tension between them is historical, and we know that. So during those times, people living in North Asia would attack from the Caucasus Mountains, pass to surrounding to the south, raiding what was beyond the mountains. Armenia, first they go into Armenia, followed by Iran. Then sometimes they go, instead of Iran, go to Assyria, go to the west, and Chaldea, inside Iraq. The Turkey, they attack in about the 7th century BCE. Did one big attack, was just before Cyrus, and killed 2 captives and pillaged through the land until they reached Nineveh. Even they reached the center of Assyrian Empire, the Assyrian capital. That was roughly a century before Cyrus' time. So the memory was there, the event has happened, and then they always worried like that. This is the western part of Caspian Sea, which I said, previously we focused on the eastern part in the maps. Ancient historians such Herodot the Greek refer to Cyrus' journey to the north of Iran to suppress the fires of civil war which had ignited there. So again, the fact that Cyrus was there is mentioned, that he has been around there. At least Herodot mentioned it. It is likely that he built the barrier and Darial Pass during this journey. It seems in this way we maybe do not have direct record of mentioning Cyrus has done that, but it's possible he did it during that time. Because then we don't know about any invasion from that line. You look, as I said before, that was known, and this famous one in 7th century, uh, uh, just before the Common Era, we heard about it, but then we don't hear about it. So maybe it's blocked, maybe it's protected well. So that could be indirect indication maybe the dam was built. He built it with stone and iron, and he's the only fortified barrier which iron was used. I mean, I'm not sure. Maybe it is mentioned because they're really stating it positively. I haven't checked. This is still their view of the Maulana Abul Kalam Azad and Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. He built it with stone and iron. It is only fortified barrier in which iron was used. It is between the 2 mountain barriers. The applicability of the verse, therefore, you only help me to strength. I will make a fortified barrier between you and them. Bring me blocks of iron to it is obvious. So they say, look, if this is the truth, this is history book says, and this is the Darial Pass Cyrus made, matches the verse. What support this claim is the fact that there is a river nearby called the Cyrus. Look, I showed you the river, which also we show you, remember, also the local called this iron dam, which is what Westerners called Kurosh. There is another river called the Kora, which passes by Tbilisi. This barrier is referred to by Josephus. Now, this is important because even we don't have a direct one, but we have some historians, ancient ones, talking about it. This barrier is referred to by Josephus, the Jewish historian. So it's important, the most important historian of Jews in ancient times. The only record we may have somehow something said about Jesus as an Messiah is by Josephus. But even there is mostly talking about Jesus' brother James. So, but again, if this is the only so-called historical reference to Hazrat Messiah, but because he was famous Jewish historian, any educated Jew may know something about what he said, what he wrote to. When he mentions his journey from Northern Caucasus, he has gone there. Because he joined the Roman army, and he was in the service of Roman emperor, and he's going around them with them. It is not the wall which is there. Okay, this place, the argument which Maulana Abul Kalam Azad they're saying. They say it is not the wall which is there at Bab al-Abwab on the edge of Caspian. They claim is not the Darban one. Look, this issue of the Darban one is important. because they claim that Darban one is built by this one. Yeah, Darban one. And then this is the river also we mentioned, which is that they claim the Darban one was made later by Anushirawan, which could be also candidate. Both he built this one and this one, it seems. Or at least Sasani made it, but the one they're talking is this one, and because Josephus is mentioning it, and Josephus died before Anushirawan, and metal is a very crucial part of it. So it is not the wall which is there in Bab al-Abwab on the edge of Caspian, because history attributes the construction of that Kesra Anushirawan. Josephus had lived before he did. Furthermore, Bab al-Abwab is definitely not Zulqarnain, a barrier referred to Quran, because no iron whatsoever is used in its construction. And now, so this one is important because also for the next lecture about this dam and the whole story, there is not historical discussion, but still we need some of these stories. Look, Pliny, there's some Roman historian scientists. There are Pliny the Elder and the Younger. These guys are politicians and good speakers, maybe lawyers, but interested in science too. So there were statesmen working in the Roman Empire. It is Pliny the Elder, his national story says Alexander passed through the Caspian gates. So you see the confusion starts. The one in Ray, okay, which is Caspian gates? And then he mentioned two Caspian gates. Caspian gates, maybe the one near Ray, if Pliny may be more accurate than his other contemporaries. The one in Gorgana, I'm not sure it was made, the one at the time of Pliny, and the one in Darban was not made. But it contrasted with Gate of Caucasus, which must be Darien. And then he says a vast natural feature in mountain chain rent asunder. So exactly that's the one we're talking between two narrow mountain. Here he says gates with iron covered beams. So this is the feature, something about the iron bars or irons, which Quran also mentioned, having placed above a horribly or odorous river. Okay, there must be a river, which again makes it Darial Pass, along with a fortress to bar the passage of the innumerable tribes. So again, as a fortress is built, the only thing is that some of these talk about gates. I'm not sure gates, these literal gates, can be open and closed, which like the castles. The feeling of the Quran was a dam, a barrier, you open and close it. But many of these people imagination or later modification maybe change it. These gates divide the world in two portions. So again, that's kind of much what we have. Then Josephus is important one. Josephus is a Jewish historian. First century gives the first extant reference to gates constructed by Alexander. Now, they claim it's constructed by Alexander. This is a confusion. It's no Alexander thing. And then we'll see partially why. Designed to be a barrier against the Scythians. Now, Scythians we saw first in the east. If that Scythians are east, then it should match the Gorgon one, the one to the east. But we'll see no, that Scythians is exactly, it can match to the west, and then actually I think still start to fit in better. Look, the credit given to Alexander also is a rivalry. Gradually we'll see the rivalry Persians and Romans or Greek culture or Western culture, they don't give the credit with the rival king. And especially the memory of Cyrus was gone, and then Ryan of Achaemenid has gone, and no rival one was, and then everybody was living for a long time under what was Alexander's achievements. So they associated to him. People easily switch sides. According to this historian, the people whom the Greeks called Scythians, this is important, were known among the Jews and Magogites, descendants of Magog, the Hebrew Bible. So if the Scythians are really can be identified, Gog and Magog, we are really good place. And that's kind of what I want to show. These references happens in two different works. This is Josephus says, and Josephus is a Jew, an educated Jew. And many of the things we know from the ancient Judaism, history of the Jews, we are owed to him. The same in Tabari or Ferdowsi gives much of the pre-Islamic Iran history alive. He's the most important writer the Jews have for ancient times, and also any reference to Jesus. The Jewish has two books, Jewish Wars and Jewish Antiquities. The Jewish Wars states that the iron gates of Alexander erected were controlled by the king of Hyrcania. Here now it's talking about the east. So this may be not a different one again. On the south edge of the Caspian. allowing passage of the gates to the Alans, again, whom Josephus considers Scythic tribes. So now, again, he pushed Scythics to the left, to the east, sorry, the east of Caspian Sea, resulted in the sack of Media. Okay, I think he confused this. I think maybe that dam in Gorgan was built before Anushirawan. Sassanids built it. It seems we'll see soon. I don't know, maybe sooner. Even maybe. I mean, even there was this. One of the footnotes was saying actually Ashkanids built it. That's a possibility. Ashkanids built the Gorgan one because they live closer today, and the Sassanid used it. Because now he mixed it. He mixed the Gorgon one and the people from the east, Hyrcanis. But the things, these are the ones Sac Media. But the one Sac Media is the must come from the west. And then we'll see why this happens. And so he's a little bit confusion, Josephus has. And then Josephus in Antiquities of the Jews contains two relevant passages. One giving the ancestry of Scythians, a descendant of Magog, son of Japhet. So again, these Scythians are somehow related to Gogs. Magog, and another that refers to the Caspian gates being breached by Scythians allied to Tiberius during Armenian War. Okay, if there is another Scythian which breached it near his own time, Tiberius is very close to him. But in Armenian War, if it's Armenian War, these are west of Caspian Sea. So we have one side Scythians west of Caspian Sea, we have Scythians east of Caspian Sea. A little bit, we'll have to see what's going on. But it seems Scythians are really matched with Yajuj and Majuj, especially if they're west of Caspian Sea. There is another historic book. This is important book, Procopius. I think it's Armenian. Maybe I'm wrong. It's an important historian. He has some important very stuff. The gates are also mentioned in Procopius' Story of the Wars, Book 1. Here they are mentioned as the Caspian gates. So something called Caspian gates, something Caucasian gates, some Alexandrian gates, and they are source of, okay, this is important. And this is next week will be important. And this could be the source of all this confusion and misnaming everything associated with Alexander. Here they are mentioned Caspian gates, and they are source of diplomatic conflict between Byzantine, Sassanid, Persians. There is really conflicts between them. When the current holder of the gate dies, so these are not completely centralized government. These are fiefdoms. The king was the Sassanid kings, but the local rulers have control, paying taxes to money to the king. But it seems, and always Georgian kings have done that to recent times. Georgian kings, sometimes with the Safavids, sometimes with Osmanis, sometimes with Russians, playing around. This king, they remain Christians. Sometimes and then many Safavid Ottoman rulers have wives from there. So sometimes they join the Safavid kingdom, and then sometimes at the later parts join the Russian kingdom. And you see right now also there are border Russia, but closer to the west. So always they play this game. When the current holder of the gates dies, he bequeaths it to Emperor Anastasius. So give it to the Roman Emperor. But Anastasius, Roman Empire, Byzantine Empire, unable and unwilling to finance a garrison for the gates. So he doesn't want to put soldiers over there, pay money with it, loses them in assault by the Sassanid king, Bobad the first, Kavets. Bobad captured that gate, so completely controls. Then after the peace, Anastasius built the city of Dara. That's interesting. Dara is the name related to Kurosh and Cyrus, so that's the city over there. Maybe keep in memory. It's not about, I guess, Alexander, which would be a focus point for, am I correct? I don't know. Which would be focus point for war during the reign of Justinian, the site of the Battle of Dara. Okay, we'll see again next lecture. Justinian is important. These are the wars about 6th century, closer to the time of Prophet Muhammad, closer to the time about maybe 50 years before his birth or something like that. In this part, the Persians once again bring up the gates. So again, there is a war again, and then between them, now this time near the city. And in the negotiation, again, Persian says, okay, the gates. Mentioning that they block the pass to the Huns. So they say to the Romans, look, we're controlling the gates. We're protecting you. So give us money, do it. You know, we need to put soldiers over there. We need to protect the dam and all of it. And then it will benefit you and us. So both of us. But the Romans do not like to give money to Persians because I think they thought they didn't look good. It's like accepting supersede dominance of Persians. When you agree to pay a country, another country money somehow is usually a sign of defeat. And so, but see, this is a tension, and I think this is the reason you have this is the reason that this issue of this dam more or barrier more and more associated with Alexander. You know, the Roman side do not want to accept this made by Cyrus because then if you get accept is built by Cyrus, you kind of have to see the ownership or priority to the Persians. So now you make the myth, oh no, this is Alexander Gate. Who's the Cyrus made? We made it. But then Cyrus, Alex, still we have it. Alexander is like the founder of Western civilization and so on. Aristotle was his teacher and he was Greek and Romans coming out of the Greek. So they start to call all these barriers, dam, gates, Alexander, which although they knew is anything Alexander has maybe passing through a gate was near Ray in South Tehran. Now, this part of Gog and Magog is interesting, this is Maulana Abul Kalam Azad has done it. Research into linguistic developments, guys, as to the fact that Gog and Magog were Mongols because in Chinese, the words are, so this is now a thing about the word. There we were talking about the possibility of the Josephus assumes CTNs are Gog and Magog. We'll come back to that, but here is the description that, okay, this Gog and Magog maybe come from the words Chinese, Manguk and Manjuk. Manjuk, we have Manjuk, but I'm not sure it is true or not. Look, this philology, I really have no, this mention al-Mizan, this part, I don't have any background to check it. It is after words Yajuj and Majuj are a Hebrew translation, literation, so the Arabic or Semitic language picking up of these words from Chinese. In Greek, another translation of the Old Testament, there are Gog and Magog. The close resemblance between Magog and Manjuk settles it that the word is derived from the Chinese pronunciation Manguk, such as the words Mongol and Mogul derive from it. This happens. When you don't talk the language, you hear it a little bit differently. You change it. Arabs do it a lot. British do it. The Abyssinia, for example, Abyssinia, and so on. There are countless other similar examples in linguistics. Thus, Gog and Magog were the Mongols. This nation has since time immemorial. I mean, I think instead of Mongol, we have to save those nomads in steppes of Central Asia and maybe East Asia, lived in Northeast Asia, a large nation which one time attacked China, another time Armenia, northern Iran, elsewhere. We had the Darial Pass in the Caucasus, and it another time northern Europe. This is the European ones. And then again, they are called Scythians. So these Scythians are becoming a little bit widespread. They're east of, first, sometimes east of Caspian Sea, west of Caspian Sea now at the time of Northern Europe, Western Europe, after the barriers was built. Actually, that could be the barriers stopped them and pushed them to the west. They didn't move inside Iran or using that way. They have to go from the other way. This side was protected, but European borders were open. This includes the nation that sacked Rome, that European Huns, and it was at this time the Roman Empire failed. It was stated above that what can be understood from the books of the Old Testament is that this mischief-making nation is of the inhabitants of the farthest north. So again, these ideas also match with the Cyrus and also match with Zulqarnain. Look, this Scythians, if you look, this is important. Scythians, because we can talk Gog and Magog, and then so this is one explanation. Scythian member of nomadic people, originally the Iranian stock, known from as early 19th century BCE, who migrated westward from Central Asia to Southern Asia. So maybe historically they come from here, these parts coming to Iranian plateau, and then Indian plateau, but then at later times start to go backward, going back to where they started first. In the 8th, 7th centuries, the Scythians founded a rich, powerful empire centered on what is Crimea. So again, this is more later. But look, if you look here, this is exactly the parts we're talking. This is this range they are. And then, but the path they show they invaded what's coming in maybe 7th century BC is the Darban one. This is the one, Darban Pass, exactly here. But Still, the Dario, I think, is the more important one. I mean, maybe just this person draw it or what they knew about it. But you see, the Dario one was also very strategic. You close it, it's closed. But I think there must be the Dario one pass two. But you see, if you block these two, which the map had it, then you really sealed it. Sealed it big, mountains, two ocean. It really sealed it this part. The Sasani did it for a long time, and we don't hear these guys, and these guys start to move to the west. But if you look here, yeah, as I said, I don't want to go too much to the Scythians, but as I said, in the 7th century, I mean, look, the Scythians sometimes also refer to Pontic Scythians, were ancient Eastern Iranian, Equestrian, nomadic people who had migrated during 9th to 8th century BC from Central Asia to Pontic steppes in modern-day Ukraine and southern Russia, where they remained established from 7th BC to 3rd BC century. So you see people going around, the same Turkic people coming to Turkey and Iran. And then in the 7th century, as we said, the Scythians crossed the Caucasus Mountains and frequently raided West Asia along with Cimmerians. So this part we know. And then this part, and then it seems some Ashkani kings attacked them around the Black Sea too. But then you see there is a map. This will help us to understand it better. This is Scythian, which we had it just here. But this is Secas, which is much bigger. I mean, the story of Secas, and then some of the islands here in Sistan Balochistan, we find it. So there are two people, Secas and Scythians. So here they're distinguished, but then if you look to the Achaemenids, this is Achaemenid inscription, they are one big Secas, which are three groups. So then it shows these people can mix together. We saw them like Arabs, we call Arabs, we talk Arabia, but nowadays we have 22 Arab countries. We find them in Sudan, we find them because it's mostly by language now. We find in Africa, we find Morocco, Arabic country, we find in Iraq. So Arab world is not just the Arabian Peninsula, it's much bigger. The same way, this Secas, it seems, Scythian and Secas are one people. Sometimes you find them here, sometimes you find them there. And then different people sometimes confused to calling them. See any questions? Okay. And now, so you see in this inscription from, there were three types of Secas. The Seka of beyond the sea, presumably the Scythians. This Seka beyond the sea are the Scythians we show to the west of Caspian Sea. Between the Greeks and Thracians on the western side of the Black Sea, the Seka tribe Masagiti with pointed caps, the Saka. So what we can say that maybe Scythians are here, maybe if you mix Scythian and Saka, and then which Achaemenids call them our Saka, so this one Saka, this one Saka, and then now the Westerners call them Scythians, but you may have some of them here, and the confusions happen here. I mean, sometimes they talk about Scythians attacking from this side, sometimes talking about attacking this side, which this side is more of a concern for now. So Allah kind of ends it here. It says, this is the end of our abridged version of what Maulana Abul Kalam Azad and Sir Syed Ahmad Khan Hindi said. Even though some parts of it are not without problems, it applies best to the verses and is easier to accept than any other interpretation. So Allah may agree that, okay, their interpretation, Cyrus fits the best and some problems is the best. He himself, look, see, people have gone so strange ways or far ways. He said another explanation of Zulqarnain from one of my teachers is that Zulqarnain was a member of an early species which precluded the human race. Okay, this you see again is the line we don't want to go, and then Allah also doesn't accept that. And there is some discussion about Gog and Magog and Tartars and then the Mongols, stuff like that, which I don't want to go through that. We kind of know, I mean, this is those type of people were there. And then, but one interesting thing he says, which I want to kind of, I mean, we can talk about Mongols, we can talk about Huns, which next lecture will be important. This nomadic people from Central Asia moving toward Europe, sacking Roman Empire, coming inside Iran before Achaemenids, and then later on in time, the much later times, Mongols came and destroyed Iranian civilization. We know that always this has repeated a few times in history. But he adds, this part is interesting. However, he's summarizing. He said people have discussed that. People have talked about Gog and Magog, but regard to Dhul al-Qarnayn, and then mentioning them, and then candidate to Mongols, Tatars, other stuff. The problem they have is this dam, which is a crucial one, where it is, and it must have iron. And then he gives a solution, which is one of those problems, because people very often assume this dam stays to end of times, and then this Gog and Magog are trapped behind it. And then, as I said, even nowadays, we know nobody's trapped behind any dam with people with airplane. We have some, again, far-fetched theories, like similar to the theory of the teacher of Allama Tabatabai, which he called them different race species. And then Dr. Yasser Ghazi called them zombies. You know, I mean, so these are, let's put them aside. But Dr. Allama gives a solution, which I think solves a philological solution, a very modern style, which solves some other level of problems. And I think that eschatological side is settled. However, they have neglected researching the matter of the barrier, which he calls his predecessors and commentators. With regard to the escape through it, the issue of this other verse of the Quran, which not necessarily Surah Al-Kahf, but Surah Al-Anbiya, we'll see it in a minute, and solving the escape through it, and solving the problem presented by this, because God says, so they were not able to scale it. When Dhul al-Qarnayn built the dam, God adds it. So they were not able to scale it, nor could they make a hole in it. He said, this is that Dhul al-Qarnayn had, this is mercy from my Lord, but when the promise of my Lord comes to pass, he will make it level with the ground. The word level here, and the promise of my Lord is ever true, and on that day we will leave a part of them in conflict with another part. But then he adds, the literal meaning, according to the exegetes, is that this mischief-making nation, that is Ya'juj and Ma'juj, or Gog and Magog, will remain confined behind a barrier without any possibility of escape to the rest of the world, as long as the barriers remain intact until God's promise to flatten and destroy it becomes. And most people take God's promise end of times, which I said, it doesn't matter. Most constructions, most building, ancient civilization are destroyed by their own time. I mean, even you have the best houses, when you die away for a few generations there, it destroys. So anything you have in this world, but people have taken it, yeah, this dam is there, people are trapped, and this dam will go to the end of times, because Dhul al-Qarnayn made it, because they make too much assumptions of Dhul al-Qarnayn. Okay, he must be a prophet, he has agents that have helped him, so the dam he built, it was the best, never destroyed, never damaged, like buying a car never dies. Okay, no, even the best car, after 20 years, at most you have to give it up. They will then escape through it to the people spreading mischief evil. But the exegetes and historians should have investigated this description of the barrier. If the aforementioned nation truly was Tartars who swept from northern China to Iran, Iraq, Syria, and the Caucasus, and then to Asia Minor, where was the barrier in the Quran which they trampled? You know, because many of them says, okay, the Ya'juj and Ma'juj are the people of nomadic tribes over there. And then they say they attack and escape the dam. And then, so where is the dam? They attack Iran. The dam didn't hold them. They attack Iraq. The dam didn't hold them. So where was the dam from behind which they came into these countries, turning them upside down? Yeah, I mean, some of them says the promise has come. They escape behind the dam. Most people say, no, they haven't escaped from the dam. I mean, both of them have a problem. So where was the dam to hold them, and what happened to them? Or if there's still a dam holding them, where are they, and how can you hold them? Which people fly with airplanes. If they were not Tatars or any other bellicose nation throughout history, where is this barrier fortified with iron? Part of the description of which is that it will stop a large nation from attacking all other regions of the world for thousands of years. I mean, the whole idea is that we have to look the verses differently and how to read Quran differently, and that's emphasized the last two lectures. They're supposed to have no other way to reach the rest of the world apart from through the barrier erected against them. Today, all regions of the world are interconnected with land, sea, and air routes. That's exactly what we were saying. And there is no natural barrier, for example, a mountain, sea, or artificial barrier such as dam, wall, or trench, which can't stop any nation from reaching any other. So what is the meaning of nations being stopped from reaching the rest of the world by a barrier between two mountains of any description and by any means? Look, they read it too much. They read it miraculously. They read the context of Solomon. the read Asif Bakhia, the read Asabaka. But he gives a philological solution because most of us have really, including myself, the level to the ground. But I mean, level, we don't say, but he said the dam is not there, damage, like the dam in Gorgon buried underneath of dirt. And then people are taking it out and you see the red bricks in the dam in the Gorgon. But what he finds is says the word Dakka, which come from the word Dakka, has another meaning too, which was important. You know, most of them didn't look at. There's a softer meaning in it. So the author thinks that the answer to this question is this, and then he adds, Allahu alam, Allahu alam, the God knows the best, is that Dakka comes from the word Dakka, means insignificance too. It doesn't mean this dam is become destroyed or flattened or leveled. It means the dam become insignificant, irrelevant, which is exactly what has happened. I mean, any dam was there. Now you fly with airplanes, irrelevant, insignificant. Lisan al-Arab, which is the most important books of words or dictionary or giving the meaning of words, is this. Says Jabalun Dakun means a low mountain. The dam is not as big as you think. Its importance is lost. The barrier is lost. Nobody protects. Making the barrier Dakka means it is insignificant, of no consequence, of no use, because there are so many alternative routes and so many different means of travel and transport by land and sea and air. I think this is a great thing. I mean, inside Allama has that. That's exactly what's happened to this dam. Is gone, is not important. And I think we can finish the story of this Dhu al-Qarnayn with this, and then kind of, because Cyrus is there, this was a big man at that time, did this dam, the dam worked for a while, for its time, like anything human beings made, and its time come, promise of God came, and the dam is insignificant. Like all these oceans are insignificant. Oceans were big barriers, or I mean, we'll see next lecture. That's all about these oceans covering all the lands. Europeans were scared to get out of the Gibraltar, or okay, now we go to the other planets. Even okay, so this inside is great. And then I think the issue of Gog and Magog in End of Times, which is the Surah Al-Anbiya, is a different story. There is something apocalyptic still, Gog and Magog there, and we'll see it again next lecture. And Daniel promises there, in that legend of Alexander is there, in the Quran is a little bit there, in the book of Bible Revelation is there, but that's not Zorban's story. Is what the Gog and Magog are. But this finish these two parts too. The truth of this promise is a promise of the advancement of human civilization. Look, Allah is very ahead of many other of his contemporaries. Various nations coming close together to the point that the people are not stopped by any barrier or hemmed in by any wall and can move to any region of the world. People are not prevented from attacking or overwhelming any nation they want. And then you say, okay, you PhD from Yale say these are zombies. I mean, I don't know, we're somewhere trapped. Oh, the ball has gone. This interpretation is supported by the context provided by his words elsewhere. Yeah, this is the verse I said. It still has some apocalyptic meaning a little bit, but it refers to Gog and Magog, Yajuj, Majuj, assault. Even when Gog and Magog are let loose, they shall break forth from every elevated place. And then this is Allama again reinterpreted by philology, because it says, because it refers to being let loose without any mention of the barrier. So the fact they can be let loose and can go let loose means, I mean, people connect it to. They say they let loose because the end of times, because the dam is leveled. But the point is this, already this has happened. Dam is insignificant. Let loose, I think, more means they spread out. And maybe is referring to all, some not the necessarily bad thing, but the spread of yellow nations all around the world could be means that, or any other thing. Dakka has another meaning also mentioned in Seha. Dakkatul al-Raki means I buried the well with earth. That's also mean that the buried there. So you buried some well with earth. Another meaning is a mountain becoming a hill of clay. As Seha says, Tadak Takat al-Jabal, which means the mountains becomes hills of clay all even. It is possible the barrier become one of many ancient structures buried under the earth by violent winds or submerged as a result of sea movement or expansion of some of them, as proven by geological studies. Thus the problem is solved. Nevertheless, the previous explanation is better, but God knows best. So either this one or he prefers the one we lose in significance, and then maybe we can find. Okay, this is essentially this one. Do I have time? Although I know it's 9 o'clock already, close to 9. To few minutes to put the introduction for the next lecture. or I can do it even next lecture. I mean, if you want to
Well,
go
you
for.
can, yeah, maybe another few minutes if you want to
Sure.
do that. Sure. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. What I'm going to put now is how I enter to this topic. And was a thread a few years ago by Dr. Sean Anthony, which we used his book also for the Sira studies. This was 2019. These are put a perspective which some questions, some doubt rise. So I make it kind of like a suspense to end the movie to this week and wait the next week. I'm telling you this, I read what he wrote, and then I have to answer the next two questions, how I agree, how much I disagree, how much is right, how much is not. So it says the 18th surah of the Quran, Al-Kahf, speaks of a figure named Dhul-Qarnayn, the two-horned man. Who is he? Most modern historians contend Dhul-Qarnayn is none other than Alexander the Great, which we don't agree, and why he's insisting on it. Alexander, but as I said, most Western scholars go that line, but we have to see which Alexander they're talking about. Alexander historical, which they know it is not, but then they may be talking Alexander of some mythical figure, which they think Quran is referring that. And then some of them, I think, have the twist in it. Quran was not able, didn't know about the true Alexander and mix it and so on. Like somebody doesn't know the true Rostam or mythical Rostam. So there are curveballs here. So that's the point. So he said Al-Qarnayn is none other than Alexander the Great of Macedon. This thread explains why. And then you see here is the old Quran. You can see Zal-Qarnayn, you can see Al-Qarnayn. And so this is Ye. The Ye was written Al-Qarnayn. And then this is the other part, and now Makkana. So this is a picture from old ancient script. And then I really debated to put this picture, but that's the Greek statues of him and the way they dressed or not dressed. And that's there were no like so he put it over there kind of but I have this one picture says this Alexander is not the one which matches the standards Muslims of Quran accept. Okay, first the word of the source. The modern historiography of the Alexander history relies on a set of sources such as Diodorus Siculus. So he says what we know historically about true Alexander. About this guy, it's first century before Common Era, Plutarch and other famous historians, but these are not the sources or precursors of the Quranic story. So he kind of claimed Quranic story has a precursor, a source, which is Dhul-Qarnayn, and Dhul-Qarnayn is Alexander, and then Quran get that like that, which we don't necessarily agree, but he puts in his argument. Alexander became more popularly known through romances, fictional narratives about Alexander, the most famous and popular of these being the romance of Pseudo-Callisthenes, composed in the 3rd century Common Era, which was translated many ancient languages, including Syriac. Yeah, this Iskandar-Nama, how Alexander romance was spread out. We have in Farsi, Nizami had it. And then some of those hadiths, I'm going to read one of those hadiths maybe next lecture. One of the long ones I skipped. Farsi, maybe I've kind of translated to show you how much similarities are. That does really, and then mix, as I said, with the khazr and the fountain of life, the water of it, if you drink it, you live forever. So the previous story of Moses and Khazr become Alexander Khazr. Alexander becomes also Dhul-Qarnayn, and then the whole mythical story of the dark jungle, and the center of dark jungle is a fountain, or yeah, if you drink his water, you live forever. Khazr ate it. Khazr was a companion of Alexander. He drank it, but Alexander couldn't drink it, and all those stuff. So Salafit is there, and those were very spread. Yeah, these were popular, especially in the west of Islamic world, and partially in Iran after Islam, because we have Nizami, the famous. And then by identification of Alexander with Zulqarnain, which is very common, this spread up. One of the most important Syriac adaptation, Alexander Romans of Pseudo-Callisthenes, Christianized Alexander, portraying him as a pious devotee of Christ. Okay, that's exactly what's the question. Always we say, this Alexander was polytheistic and that kind of attitude. He claimed he's divine when captured Iran, which such a way even the Greeks couldn't tolerate him. They were upset for him. He wants to act like Iranian kings that claim descendants from divine and Farizadi, and then so on. They're the Alexander's pious prophet type. So we see this process of making him a good person, owning him and making the devout semi-prophet, a pious devotee of Christ was happening in Christianity. And then Dr. Anthony has some ambiguity in his writing. Now things are a little bit more clear, but He talked about a book, which will topic of the next two lecture, the heroic deeds of Alexander, Nishana the Alexandros, Nishana, Nisana. This more is south than shit. And then Nisana. I mean, I said Nishana of Alexander. So Nishana means the victory or heroic deeds of Alexander. So this book or this story was not as famous of the so-called Alexander romances, but was another one, and this was written in Syriac, was the language of Christianity in West Islamic land. In this stream of stories about Alexander that finds purchase in the Quran, he says Quran is reflecting influence by these stories. Begins with the messenger being asked about Dhul al-Qarnayn, and he says, I will recite to you an account, Zechariah, the first of him, the correspondence with the Syriac Nishana. It says much of the story verses coming from which we covered 83 to 102 of Surah 18, and some correspondence closeness to Nishana. Okay, remember, I do not agree with him. I do not get this picture, and I have to explain even, which I agree. There are some resemblances, very similarities. The same way, remember, we had the Kadhaban story and Iqra's story. But, and then this one is more important because this is Quran. Iqra's story was a narration about the first revelation. But exactly what does it mean? What is the purport to? What is Quran is doing? And actually, I'm thinking this is very, in some aspects, is very, very positive. I would say that. And it still doesn't change the historicity. These all we have to discuss. And I don't think it still changes the best candidate. It definitely is not the historical Alexander. It is Cyrus. As I said, maybe I was thinking maybe Anushirawan in some aspects can fit, but not as much as Cyrus. But let's begin with his name, Dhul al-Qarnayn. In an early scene of Nishana, Alexander prostrates in worshipping sajda. So he claims sajda, the worship, sajid, does the sajda and prays to God. You give me horns on my head. So issue of horns, this is a tweet, but we'll have to go through it. And then these are a Syriac script. The Qarnat, Zul Qarnat means birasi. And I don't know Syriac. Well, Li is for me, Qarnat, horns, and birasi. And then they don't do vowels here, so it's making it a little bit harder to read. To topple the kingdoms of the world. But the two horns, as we said, are not literal horns, although they may be put on the crown or helmet, but it's a sign of the powers God give to these kings, maybe different sense of powers to rule this world. Imagery of Alexander having two horns is early and widespread, and then this image of Alexander with two horns is very early. Lysimachos, the former general of Alexander, issued coins that portrayed Alexander with the ram's horns. Remember, we had it in the Bible too, but also they have it themselves because they were not Christians or Jewish, so they didn't have the Bible. But these generals have depicted Alexander as a ram with horns. And then because it's some relationship to the Greek god Zeus, Ammon, who Egyptian priests claimed was Alexander's father. So, gradually this divinity of Alexander spread out, and some of these people start to claim divine lineage for him and make him a combination of Egyptian Greek gods as his father. One even finds this iconography in Arabia. I don't see the horns on I think this is the horn. You remember, like the horn goes for this one. And here is a little bit hard to see, but I guess this is his face. You see that? I don't see the horn, and maybe this is the horn. In this one, I cannot see it very well. But you see other pictures which are more decently here. This is much more clear. Silver coin issued this time, Arabian, Alexander, imitative drachma, 2nd century BC, Arabian, Alexander. This Arabian is, I think North Arabia is more Levant, is near Nabatean kingdom or something like that. It's not Saudi Arabia or Arabian Peninsula. It's Syria or that part. The pagan connotation of the horns were discarded or reinterpreted by Christians, but you see all these images of Alexander. We have some kind, he was an important figure, for all those regions, and the horn was associated with him. So calling him Dhul al-Qarnayn in that sense is not off. So the same argument we use for Cyrus, and here they have more evidence. They have it. But that's just the beginning. Both the more detailed Nishana and the Quran narrate 3 extraordinary journeys to the fitted sea near where the sun sets and evildoers are punished, where the sun rises and scorches people. Correct, but he a little bit simplified it. Where the Zulqarnain builds a wall against Gog and Magog, but again, this is true. This is we have to see what's going on. My fit has been now, this is what he said, and then he said people start to ask me the discussion of the second journey when Zulqarnain came to the rising of the sun. He found rising of the people whom we had provided no shelter from it. The passage right from Nishana make it far less cryptic. He claims if you read Nishana with the Quran, you would understand, because that's the one we have less description. Still, as I said, is to the east, is to the steppes, the nomad people, but exactly the description was the least we have. And then he says, Hatta, see, this is Arabic verse, Hatta is a balaga matla shams, the sun rises, etc. So we saw the sun was rising. He saw the sun was rising on the people, which we had not do a protection against sun for them. The bright sea to the place where the sun enters the window of heaven, for the sun is a servant of the Lord. I mean, let me go faster here. Yeah, the place of his rising is over the sea again. Look here, a little bit, the story is different. So they don't know the differences, and we have to see what Quran has done. The place of his rising is over the sea. So again, the Quran doesn't say the sunrise happened in the sea, but it says on just sun rising. But as I said, if you're near a lake like ours in Michigan, you can see it rising from the sea. But if it's your land, which is like flat land, like it steps up Eurasia or steps of Central Asia, you feel is rising somewhere far away from east from the land. Okay, the place of his rising is over the sea, and the people who dwell there where he is about to rise flee away and hide themselves in the sea. They had to not burn by his rays. You know, the idea he is expressing is that the sun is coming up from the sea, and then when they're the lands close, when the sun rising, sun is so close to them, because now sun is far away in the sky. When it was close to them, it may burn them. So when the sun is coming up, they jump in the sea till sun goes up, gets farther away from them. So the idea is that literally sun, when it's the low horizon, is very close to the earth. As it's going up to the sky, okay, it's the distance become more and then doesn't burning us and so on. It passes through midst of the heaven, but you know, the wording of the Quran is very different. That's exactly, we have to know the wording is very different. He passes through the midst of the heaven to the place where he enters the window of heaven. And wherever he passes there are terrible mountains, and those who dwell there have caves hollowed out in the rocks. As soon as they see the sun passing over them, men and birds flee away from before him and hide in the caves, for rocks are rent by his blazing heat and fall down. And whether they be men or beasts, as soon as the stones touch them, they are consumed. And when the sun enters the window of heaven, he straightway bows down and makes obeisance before God, his creator, and he travels and descends the whole night through the heavens until at length he finds himself where he rises. So it's make it much storied, you know, the whole issue of the sun, the cosmology, the sun going to the sky, what it does, and burning of the sun. None of these details are in the Quran, and it's very different. And then, but you see some of this language, you see similar in hadiths. And I think people, I mean, we have to see what is, and that's what we want to talk next 2 lectures, explain what it is, what has happened, what is similarities, and how we have to explain it. Is a little bit more challenge, but helps us to understand Quran, inshallah, better.
Inshallah.